Hi guys, it's time for another quick update on the state of my new sailboat Athena. Also, I've got a question for you guys. First off, I'll check to see if the moisture level in the hull is continuing to drop. Then I'll show you a really cool product and a few other things. And last but not least, I get to play with poo. I'll leave Jökull in charge of Obelix. Let's head over to Athena. It feels like it's been raining non-stop for the last 3 or 4 weeks. As I've mentioned before, it's really important that the hull dry out before I apply the new barrier coat. But of course that is almost impossible to do when it's just raining non-stop. But yeah, let's go take a look. The camera I'm using to record these videos with, the Panasonic GH4, is weather sealed, but I don't want to risk it with all of this rain, so I think I'll postpone the bit about the moisture levels in the hull till a little later today, so hopefully it will stop raining by then. For now, let's head up and go down below and take a look at some other things. Athena has got a little bit of that old boat funk. I think you guys know the smell I'm talking about. A little earlier on this week, in an effort to do something about that funk, I wanted to remove all of the hoses. I'm gonna be replacing them anyways, and I thought it'd be good to give the boat some time to air out. I removed the pile of hoses you see over here, only to discover that I'd left some tools aboard Obelix and I was unable to remove the last of the hoses. So to punish myself for this grave mistake, I sentenced myself to more sanding. A harsh but fair punishment. We'll get back to that in a few moments. For now, I want to get busy removing the last of the hoses. As luck would have it, the hoses I wasn't able to remove are the discharge hoses from the heads, so fair warning, this could get a little bit disgusting. A toilet aboard a boat is called a head, and a typical head has 2 connections, a small diameter inlet and a much beefier outlet. I've already removed at least parts of the inlet, so all we need to do now is to remove the outlet or discharge hose. And of course that is by far the most disgusting of the 2. You know what they say, don't be a fool, wrap your tool. Okay, that saying might not be meant for this specific scenario, but when you're doing something like this, a pair of gloves is a really nice thing to have handy. Here behind me you see the pump that's used for pumping whatever ungodly mess is in the bowl overboard. Now I have 2 options here, because I think I could poke around in the dark in there and see if I could wiggle loose the hose clamps and remove the hoses that way. Or I think I can relatively easily remove the entire pump and all the hoses along with it. And I think it might be a good idea to service the pump anyways before eventually moving aboard the boat. So yeah, let's go for the full Monty. I'm off to a great start because someone, myself, forgot to pump out the toilet before removing the through hull. So I looked up this pump on the internet last night, and it turns out I need to remove all of these bolts to be able to remove the pump. There is not a lot of room in here. This is a little bit funny. I've managed to get all of the bolts out of there with the exception of this one. This is a little stubborn one, but we'll manage. So all of these holes were populated with these, with the exception of this hole down here, which had one of these. And I can see why. Because space is so limited in behind here, you could possibly get one of these in here and hold on to the bolt while you were tightening this, but it's okay. This is just a piece of trim. I've managed to remove that piece of trim, but there's no way I'm gonna get the pump out of there with those hoses attached. Those are way too stiff, so I'll have to cut the hoses. So that was the first bit of hose. Now all I need to do is to remove the hose that goes from the pump to the head. So that was relatively... Oh, don't look inside the hose. Of course, the pump is pretty far above the head, so as soon as I loosen that hose on the head, we might see a bit of, let's just call it water seeping out. So I better put down a bit of paper. Ta-da! All I need to do now is to repeat the process out in the forward head. Ta-da! And there we go. I think this will be the thumbnail for this video. Seeing as I don't have a girlfriend I can use as clickbait for this video, you guys will have to make do with a poo-encrusted hose. Sorry. I hadn't really planned on removing the heads, only the hoses, but just looking at the bolts that they were bolted down with, what's probably a good idea to replace those, and also they're much easier to clean now, and well, yeah, it's done. So let's move on to the question I mentioned I had for you guys. Soon I'll start to remove the port lights you see here behind me. Most of them leak, and also the acrylic is in pretty bad shape. As soon as the port lights are removed, I want to go ahead and paint this. Now, by waiting until the port lights have been removed, that'll give me a nice sharp edge between the soon-to-be painted plywood and the frames of the port lights. And a sharp edge is a big part of what makes a nice paint job, at least in my opinion. Now for this, I'll use the exact same paint I've used for the plywood aboard Obelix because, well, I really like that paint. But before I can start painting, I want to take care of all the pieces I'll need to varnish. So this piece there, that piece up there, this down here. You know what? Let me just remove these curtain rails up here. That'll give you a much better idea of what this is going to look like. This is the before shot. And this is the after shot. So all these solid pieces of wood are going to get varnished. So as you can see, there are quite a few pieces of wood that I'll need to varnish. And that brings me to my question for you guys. What brand of varnish would you recommend? Please bear in mind that I prefer a satin finish. I've only ever worked with one brand of varnish before, the stuff I've used aboard Obelix, that is. So I figured it was about time to try something new, and that's why I'm giving this a shot. So these are 2 test pieces here. I've never used this stuff before, and so far there's only 1 coat on here, and it's okay. But I'd love to get your recommendations on what kind of varnish I should use. So I don't know if you'll be able to see these little numbers on camera, but this section down here, that'll get 1 coat. This will get 2 coats, 3 coats, 4 coats, 5 coats, 6 coats, and 7 coats. And then this will get a satin finish, whereas this will just be the glossy finish. Before I started removing the hoses and all of that yucky stuff, I mentioned that I'd sentenced myself to more sanding, and this is the area I've sanded. The area underneath the V-berth. So as you can see, I've already got the first couple of coats of paint on there. I know this may sound a little bit weird, but after all of the hard work I put into the hull and it's nowhere near done yet, I felt like I should do something that I could actually finish, something that I could just say was done aboard the boat instead of it all just being tearing things apart. And that's why I sanded and painted this area here. And the sad thing is that it still needs a couple of coats, but at least it'll be done by next weekend. I think I might have to do a bit of housekeeping at some point. It looks like a bomb went off in here. I'm fast running out of places to put stuff. But in a few days, I should be able to pile all of it on top of the V-berth. And that should free up a bit of room in the main saloon for when I start pulling out the port lights. In the beginning of this video, I mentioned a cool product, and this is that product. This is the Sea SafetyHub 150. As I've mentioned before, the 12-volt system isn't on my to-do list for this summer. It is one of the first things I'll look at after I've moved aboard the boat though. Now, having said that, in order for me to hook up my new charger to the batteries so that I can charge the batteries to make sure that they don't die on me, I need a fuse to go in between the charger and the batteries. I could do that with a single inline fuse, but, well, I decided to just go ahead and pick this guy up instead. So why do I think this is a cool product? Certain things you want to hook up directly to your battery instead of to your DC distribution panel. Here aboard Athena, obvious examples of that would be my bilge pumps and also, as I've mentioned, my charger. Now the SafetyHub 150 will allow me to do that in a very neat fashion. I mean, sure, I could do the same thing with a negative bus, a positive bus, and some individual fuses, but this is a much cleaner solution, at least in my eyes. Once you remove the cover, you can see that there's room for 4 MIDI fuses and 6 ATO ATC fuses up here. The MIDI fuses will go up to 200 amps, and the ATO ATC fuses will go up to 30 amps. In my case, I'll hook up my battery here, my charger here, 1 bilge pump here, and another bilge pump here. And it's also got a little negative built-in bus over here. One of the things I've learned after having rewired Obelix is the fact that you always want to leave room for future devices. In fact, that is one of the things that the future owner of Obelix will have to deal with, but that's a story for another time. With the SafetyHub, I'll easily be able to hook up a few additional devices directly to my house bank at some point in the future. I'd love to hook this thing up to my charger right now, but some moron, this guy, forgot to pick up the fuse that goes inside of this. So I guess we'll have to do that next weekend. I don't know if it's my imagination, but it's almost like Athena's already starting to smell better. Anyways, it stopped raining for a while, so let's head down and I'll show you what I originally wanted to show you in the beginning of this video. I think I might have shown you guys this device before, but let's take a little bit of a closer look. This is the Tramix Skipper Plus. This is a non-destructive moisture meter calibrated to measure moisture inside, among other things, GRP laminate. Around here, this seems to be almost like an industry standard. First off, perhaps I should explain why I'm telling you guys about this little device here, just in case you're new to my channel. Well, the boat you see here behind me, that's my new sailboat Athena. About 2 months ago, I picked her up in Scotland and sailed her back home to Denmark. Well, she's got a bit of osmosis or pox or gel coat blistering, call it whatever you will, and I'm in the process of treating that, and a big part of that process is to dry out the hull, and that's where this little guy comes into the picture. Just in case you are new to my channel, I highly recommend that you go check out the introduction playlist. That'll get you all caught up and probably answer a lot of the questions you've got. So there's a link for that playlist down in the description. I chose to purchase this little device because I didn't know anybody that had one I could borrow. Of course, just a few weeks after having picked it up, it turns out that there's an awesome guy right here in the yard that had one I could have borrowed for free. So yeah, that's $461 well spent. So this is a somewhat expensive device, but what do you get for your money? Well, this device only really does one thing. It measures moisture content. There are 3 different ranges, and you need to manually select the appropriate range for the material that you're testing. So range 1 is for hardwood, range 2 is for GRP, and range 3 is for surface moisture. When measuring GRP laminate, we'll be looking at the comparative scale. That's the numbers down here. If on the other hand you want to look at moisture content in wood, you'll be looking at the numbers up here. So when I'm referring to numbers in relation to the hull, I'll be using the comparative scale, so those will be between 0 and 100. Grabbing measurements with this little guy is as easy as it gets. All you need to do is to turn it on, select the appropriate range, and then press it up against whatever you want to measure. When I first put Athena up on the hard and started measuring, no matter where on the hull I measured below the waterline that is, the values would just be out of scale. The needle would just be pegged all the way to the right. But now she's been up here on the hard for about a month and a half, so let's go ahead and see how the hull is doing. Not surprisingly, the areas of the hull that's been drying out for the longest period of time has the lowest moisture levels. So it goes from around 50 at the bow of the boat to around 100 at the stern of the boat. Before I can continue the osmosis treatment, those moisture levels will have to drop significantly, and I'm actually starting to doubt whether or not I'll have Athena back in the water this fall. Now, it would be a shame if I didn't, but like I've mentioned before, the only thing that's important here is that this gets done right. I don't want to have to go through this a second time. I'm just about done editing the video from today. I still have a little bit of After Effects stuff to get done, so I figured in about another hour or so I'll be completely done, and then I need about an hour to render the video, an hour to upload it, and then YouTube needs a couple of hours to process and do whatever they do. So I figured this video should be online, well, tomorrow morning. But before ending this video, I want to show you something. When I got back home from Athena, I spent a couple of hours walking and playing with Jökull, and now he's right back where I left him this morning. It's amazing to me how many hours a day that dog spends sleeping. I mean, if I was to offer him a walk right now, he would be very reluctant to go. Well, okay guys, that is gonna be it for this video. See you! Jökull and I hope you've enjoyed this video. For more videos like it, click subscribe. Please consider leaving a comment and a thumbs up. It really helps me a lot, and I appreciate your support very much. If you're new to the channel, please check out the introduction playlist. If you want to watch every single video I've ever published, check out the playlist named All Videos. It contains every single video listed in chronological order.